Thank you. Good evening from BBC London. Coming up on tonight's programme. Unsafe and unusable. A third of female cyclists say they won't use cycleways on dark winter nights due to safety fears.
You really feel like when you're coming down from the station that you're really running the gauntlet because it's such a dark, long corridor that you just can't see where you're going next.
Transport for London says it's making improvements, also on the programme. The BBC understands bereaved families and survivors will find out the future of the Grenfell Tower site at a meeting tonight. The widow who tells us she has no option but to sue after care failings led to her husband's death in a private hospital. Plus,
with confidence sky high after that 5-1 win against Manchester City, Arsenal arrive here in Newcastle looking to do something that's never been done before in the League Cup.
And we bring you a taste of Peru at Kew as the world-famous gardens celebrate the annual Orchid Festival. Hello and a very warm welcome to you. Perhaps this is a familiar sight, but let me ask you, how safe do you feel cycling around the capital after dark? Cycling campaigners say nearly a quarter of Transport for London's cycle network is unsafe after dark due to things like poor lighting and a lack of escape routes. The report also suggests 1 in 3 female cyclists stops using their bike during the winter months or after dark because of safety concerns. With more, here's our transport correspondent, Tom Edwards.
It's busy on Cycleway 10 close to Millwall Football Club, but in the winter for many cyclists it's not regarded as safe and many stay away. Emma doesn't use the route now at night as she had a very bad experience here.
There's 2 guys that were standing here who, when they saw me, they spread out to take over the whole path. I knew from all the warnings, I knew pretty much what might happen, so I shouted and sped up, and I didn't think they expected either of those things, and managed to get round on the grass verge there and then away from them. Yeah.
Did that shake you up then?
It did, yeah. There was no one around, and it was just a kind of one of those moments when I just had to go with my adrenaline and just go for it. I was pretty lucky to get away.
Louise now also doesn't use this cycle lane.
It's very intimidating when you're going here as a lone cyclist, just going backwards and forwards. You really feel like when you're coming down from the station that you're really running the gauntlet because it's such a dark, long corridor that you just can't see where you're going next.
A report today says this isn't a one-off. London cycling campaigns say nearly a quarter of TfL's bike routes feel unsafe at night, and that disproportionately affects women cyclists. Like Cycle Route 10, many of the routes are isolated, have poor lighting with no escape routes. And in winter, 1 in 3 women cyclists stops due to safety. Campaigners say TfL must be much braver on where it funds cycle routes.
What we're saying to Transport for London is that they shouldn't be funding and approving cycleways that go through routes that are isolated. We want them to add social safety as a criteria when they are approving a cycleway. The problem we have at the moment is it's too easy for local councils, given the choice between taking a bit of space from the cars on the roads and putting in a safe protected cycle lane and just routing it through the local park. Obviously they're just going to route it through the local park because no one's going to get upset. It's a politically easy choice to make.
TfL says it's working to better understand how its schemes affect safety for women and girls and is considering the report's recommendations. At the moment, it's a cycling network that in large parts doesn't feel safe. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Next, the BBC understands that a meeting is underway with bereaved families and survivors of the Grenfell fire to outline the future of the tower. Well, our political correspondent Carl Mercer is here. Carl, at this stage, what more can you tell us?
We think this meeting started about 6:30, involving the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, and I'm told it's kind of the latest in a series of meetings. She's had up to half a dozen meetings with the bereaved and survivors where they've been discussing the future of Grenfell Tower. Of course, we're 7.5 years on, aren't we, from those events that June night. And we believe that she's going to tell them tonight that they've decided that the tower will be demolished. So that will be a hard thing for a lot of the bereaved and the survivors to hear, because many would like to see it remain there as a memorial really to what happened on that night. Others say, look, we want it gone because it's really difficult for us to look out on that scene every day. So it will be a very hard decision for some of them to hear. But what I understand is going to happen after this meeting with the bereaved and the survivors, excuse me, tomorrow there will be a letter which will be sent out to all of the surrounding communities, because clearly it affects them as well. And then on Friday there will be a formal announcement from the government of what they've decided to do with the tower.
OK, so we understand that meeting with the families
still ongoing
while we're on air. And fair to say, Carl, that this won't be the last difficult decision the government has to make about this site.
No, I mean, it's clearly one of the biggest ones they've had to make. But then the question is, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is what happens with the site? And we know, don't we, that the Grenfell Memorial Commission has been looking at that for the last 5 or 6 years. They have shortlisted 5 architects firms to try and come up with ideas. But again, that will be contentious, and there are lots of different divided opinions in the community as to what should happen with that site.
Yeah. As you say, difficult decisions all round. Carl, for now, thank you very much. And of course, over the next 24 hours, we will bring you any updates as we get them, of course, here on BBC London and on our website and our radio station, BBC Radio London. Now, St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, we understand, will be able to continue developing its plan for a new hospital after the government pledged £50 million towards development works. Many of the current buildings are crumbling and leaking due to age and overuse. Despite today's announcement, it's not expected that work will start on the new site for at least another decade.
Well, it's good news in that it's the biggest ever government investment in a new St Mary's. This campaign has been around for decades. We've got, we think, approximately 50 million over the next 3 years to take us through the planning and development phase, get to a full planning consent from Westminster City Council and get this project back on track.
Plenty more to come this Wednesday evening for you, including...
Come and join me on a mini trip to Peru, here in Kew Gardens, where the Orchid Festival is bringing a little bit of South America to southwest London.
A woman from Surrey says she feels she's been left with no choice but to sue a private hospital over failings in care that led to her husband's death. Philip Morris passed away in December 2021 after suffering complications following weight loss surgery at St Anthony's Hospital in Cheam. His widow, Dana, says she's been further traumatised by efforts to get compensation from Spire Healthcare. Layla Hayes has been speaking to her.
Phil Morris was a family man.
Happy birthday, Jackson!
Who hoped weight loss surgery would give him more years with his wife and son. But in 2021, the 48-year-old university lecturer died just 4 days after having the surgery in a private hospital.
Phil was such a vibrant husband and person and a wonderful dad. When he died, it was like a bomb had gone off, and we're still dealing with those feelings, but at the same time trying to bring what's happened to a close from a justice point of view.
Mr Morris had the gastric sleeve operation at St Anthony's Hospital in Cheam in Surrey. Last year, an inquest into his death heard how there was a failure to properly monitor him post-surgery and that a vital carbon dioxide monitor wasn't working. The coroner said if it had been, it's likely Mr Morris would have survived.
He goes in on a Monday for a routine surgery to improve his health. He was on the exercise bike in the morning, and it's like by the Wednesday he should have been home, And instead, by the Friday, early hours of the morning, he was dead.
A year on, the family have received no compensation and are now taking legal action against Spire Healthcare and some of the doctors responsible for Mr. Morris's care. Spire Healthcare have apologised for the distress caused to the family and told us Mrs. Morris's claims are being responded to through the appropriate legal channels. But the family say they don't understand why this is taking so long.
I feel like it's more and more years that I'm having to scroll back, you know?
Their son, Orson, was just 12 when his dad died and is now 15. They miss him every day.
Just want to bring it to a close and grieve for Phil in a healthy way, and then be able to honour him and try to move on with a positive legacy, which he'd already started, you know. But I feel like we got to get justice for him first. That's my goal.
The hospitals say they've made a number of changes, but Phil Morris's family believe his death could have been prevented, and they don't want this to happen to anyone else. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
The Morris family speaking to us. Let me bring you now a roundup of some of the day's other stories. The Mayor has blamed the sharp increase in shoplifting in the capital on London's high cost of living. Data published by the ONS shows that 80,000 shoplifting offences were recorded in the 12 months to September last year. That's up 53,000 from the previous year. The government's announced that elections scheduled to take place this May in Essex, Thurrock and Surrey will be postponed. The votes will be delayed by 1 year to allow a reorganisation of local government to take place. The Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner said holding elections for councils that were due to be scrapped would be a waste of taxpayers' money. And members of the National Education Union have been taking part in strike action at St Dominic's Catholic Primary School in Hackney over plans to close the school. The local council is consulting on proposals to close 4 primary schools and merge 2 others in the borough due to falling pupil numbers. Lifts out of order, narrow doors and corridors, non-accessible kitchens and bathrooms. Just some of the housing problems facing Londoners with disabilities highlighted in a new report. It says urgent action is needed to increase the number of affordable and accessible homes. Our reporter Anna O'Neill has been to meet one woman who says she struggled as a wheelchair user to find a place to call home.
So as you can see, I've got a lovely garden out here, but I've got this enormous and very difficult step to get out into it. So
it's not perfect, but it is home. Those living with mobility issues, living in a place that meets their accessibility needs is not a given.
The doorways are wide enough for me to get my wheelchair through, light switches are lower down, plug sockets are a bit higher up. There's lots of small things like that which really make a big difference to my day-to-day life.
Although there is one quite obvious thing that I noticed straight away when I came in.
Yeah.
Somebody hasn't quite thought about the accessibility of the garden.
Yeah, so there is a step to get into the garden, which is a shame because it's, in other ways, it's such a beautiful, accessible house.
Today, a new housing report has revealed the painful experiences of deaf and disabled Londoners living in insecure, inaccessible and unaffordable homes. And Abby is one of those who's taken part.
Housing is not an isolated issue. Housing needs to be considered in the context of transport and streetscapes and public infrastructure, because I can't get into, I would say, 90% of the shops and restaurants in this area. You know, if you can't easily get down the street, you can't access the tube station, then it doesn't really matter that your house is accessible because it's essentially a beautiful prison.
The report found 1 in 4 respondents with accessibility needs cannot safely and easily use basic facilities like kitchens, bathrooms and entryways. Only 3% of existing homes in London are visitable for a disabled person. And nearly 2 in 3 respondents said they'd made cutbacks on food and other essentials to be able to afford housing. The report's being launched here tonight at City Hall, and local and national decision makers are being urged to work together to build more accessible homes, especially for social rent.
We talk a lot now about future-proofing and resilience, and critical to that has to be about building homes that people can live in throughout their entire lives. And the fact that only 3% of current new build housing meets that criteria is shocking. And it's condemning disabled people now to live lives of, frankly, misery, but it's also condemning thousands of Londoners who are going to become disabled to the same life.
The Mayor of London has allocated £100 million in funding to deliver more accessible homes for disabled Londoners. Campaigners want more action, more quickly. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
OK, to football now, and as it stands, there's never been a North London derby in a major cup final. But if things go well for Arsenal and Tottenham this week, that could happen. It's the League Cup semi-finals tonight and tomorrow. First up, Arsenal, who've got it all to do this evening at St James's Park in Newcastle, and that is where we can join our sports reporter Chris Legg, wrapped up warm.
Yeah, it is indeed very chilly up here in the northeast, but if that North London derby League Cup final was to remain a possibility, Arsenal tonight are going to have to do something that's never been done before. No team in the history of the League Cup, and that dates back to the 1960s, has lost the first leg at home by 2 goals or more and managed to turn that round and make it through. But Arsenal could hardly come into this match in more positive fashion after that remarkable 5-1 win at home to the Premier League champions Manchester City on Sunday. Yes, Manchester City have their problems at the moment, but it was a superb performance by the Gunners, and the whole mood around Arsenal as they head here to St James's Park is transformed from the first leg 4 weeks ago.
So we know how big that is, and you can feel it. You can feel it straight away. The boost that the game gave us, winning against City, the manner that we did it, and the fact that it's a game that is the closest competition we are into a final, so we're going to give it a real go.
The fans who've spent the day travelling to the northeast are also optimistic thanks to Sunday's 5-1 victory over Man City.
Yeah, you're not going to have a bigger result than that all season. We were saying it's probably our favourite game at the Emirates of all time. So, yeah, taking that confidence into tonight.
I think Sunday's match was massive. It was a big actually a shift in tactics for Arteta. We really went for the counter, which we've all been crying out for.
As for Arsenal's opponents, the team in black and white haven't won anything since the days of black and white. Even their most famous son admits that pressure on Newcastle could aid Arsenal.
I'm hoping that there's none of that in their mind, and they can go out. And I think it's really it's a tricky situation, because it's half time technically. You've got a 2-0 lead, but Newcastle are at their very, very best when they're playing front foot.
Straight after the defeat and the manner that it happened and how we are today is very different, because we come from very strong performances, some great wins, and especially the last one at home against Man City.
No team has ever come from 2 or more goals down away from home in the second leg of a League Cup semi-final.
Tuck it in there and she go home. Well, you never know. Strange things happen. It's football at the end of the day.
It's a long way to go. Train fares aren't cheap. You're 2-0 down. Why are you doing this?
I don't know. When our original train got cancelled because of an animal on the line, we definitely considered what you're doing.
Now to see if the Gunners can fire away to Wembley. So the stats kind of against Arsenal, but one thing in their favour is Newcastle have lost their last 2 home games and they've conceded at least 2 goals in each of those games. And Arsenal, they are free-flowing, they are free-scoring at the moment, so it could well happen. Now also this week it is the Women's League Cup semi-finals. These matches played over just one leg tonight. Chelsea against West Ham. Now Chelsea beat Durham 5-0 in the quarter-finals. They beat West Ham by the same scoreline in the WSL last month, and they haven't lost a game in any competition this season. Chelsea very much the favourites, but their manager Sonia Bonpastor says she is taking nothing for granted this evening.
It's an opportunity to get to a final.
I think from the last game we played against them, they are probably going to do differently because, I think in that game they were a bit passive, and I think they want to be more proactive in the game. So again, they will be really motivated, and I think it will be a different completely game.
Chelsea against West Ham kicks off at 7 o'clock. It is live on the BBC iPlayer, as is Arsenal against Manchester City in the second semi-final tomorrow night. Now, the last two Women's League Cup finals have been Arsenal against Chelsea. Arsenal have won both of them, but as mentioned in the men's competition, a North London derby has never happened in the final of any cup competition. It is still a possibility. Tomorrow night, Tottenham try and protect a 1-0 lead at Anfield. That game is live on BBC London Digital Radio. Tonight, here at St James's Park, can Arsenal do something that's never been done before in this competition? It will be really quite a story if they can. They start this game 2 goals down, looking for what will be a never-to-be-forgotten comeback. Chris.
Well, we wait with anticipation. Chris, thanks so much. That's our sports reporter, Chris Legg. Now to some flamboyant flora now, and something to brighten up a winter's day here in London. Spectacular orchids from South America, because the beauty of Peru is the theme of this year's Orchid Festival at the world-famous Kew Gardens. And apparently, if you look closely, you may spot an alpaca or two hidden amongst the flowers. Alice Bandukravi can show us round.
February in the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, an explosion of colour, this year celebrating the flora and fauna of Peru. 6,000 orchids are on display here. It takes many months of planning and preparation.
It takes a whole month to install the festival, and then the festival is there for a month. And after the 2nd of March, we take everything down, and the orchids and all the plants are then open for donation to our volunteers and our staff members.
Part of Solène de Quiré's job is to dream up these displays. This was her vision, a horn of plenty, or cornucopia, inspired by the Peruvian flag.
Every year it needs to be more spectacular than the previous year. So it's a lot of effort. We try and use as much material as we can from our garden, so the whole cornucopia is cladded with leaves that we harvested from this glasshouse over the year. The flowers come from Holland. They're from the horticultural trade. They're classic orchid that you would find in the horticultural trade, which are mainly from Asia. But we do, within the cornucopia, have some South American species and cultivar.
Here they are carefully tended to with just the right amount of light and humidity to look their best.
It's just a happy feeling because it's February, it's been a long January, grey and miserable. Today we are blessed with sunshine, but not every day in February. So we just want to bring colour into the February months.
And judging by the queues outside, people can't get enough of these beautiful blooms. Alice Bandukravi, BBC London.
Just the tonic, a taste of Peru. Nowhere near their weather, which I think is in the high 20s at the moment. Louise is here, but it's been a dry and sunny day. We'll take that.
It's been a glorious day today. Lots of sunshine as well tomorrow, Liz, but the cloud could be back on Friday. Lovely today for walking along the Thames. This was Wapping a little earlier on. We will keep those clear skies, though, through the night tonight. And first thing this morning, we had a frost outside of London. This was Hertfordshire, and you can see the frost on the ground there. Now, there will be more frost tomorrow around Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire in particular as temperatures fall below freezing. Clear skies then. Any cloud at the moment will melt away. Those temperatures are going to fall away. We could see some patchy fog as well first thing tomorrow morning. So it will be a cold start. Overnight lows to the north and west of London sitting at around -3 degrees and even close to freezing in the city centre itself. So a chilly start, some frost around first thing. That will lift, the fog will clear. A northeasterly breeze starting to pick up a little. That will introduce a little more cloud into the afternoon, but it's a dry day. Just a few scattered showers perhaps along that Essex and Kent coast. coast, and temperatures will peak between 7 and 9 degrees into the afternoon. Now, the high pressure as we move towards Friday pushes off to Scandinavia. The winds will strengthen a little as the isobars close together, and that could drive in further showers off the North Sea. So on Friday, it could be a colder day when you factor in the strength of the wind, a little more cloud around, and also some showers. And showers maybe of a wintry mix of rain, sleet and snow across the Downs in particular as well. Now, as we move into Saturday, that little weather front sits across the southeast. So there is a potential for further risk of some showers just spoiling the day on Saturday. But on the whole, Sunday looks likely a quieter story. So this is how we're looking into the start of the weekend. There's some showers around Sunday, drier and brighter. And on the whole, that little bit warmer as we move through next week. Riz.
Jolly good. Lou, thanks very much. And that is it for now. Thanks very much for being with us. Plenty more on our website, including, if you missed it, a lovely uplifting story of a Londoner who turns flowers at the end of their shelf life into beautiful arrangements to bring joy to people, for example, in care homes. Check out the Flower Bank in North London. From me and everyone on the BBC London team here, whatever you're doing, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye for now.